Holy mackerel. I think they have Merrick Garland if they get going with this impeachment inquiry. Now, don't get me wrong, the press will throw everything they can in front of it, all kinds of flack, as well as the other Democrats. But I think we have some courageous individuals in Kevin McCarthy, Jim Jordan, Jim Comer, and others. And I want you to understand, if we did not have the Republican majority in the House, even a small majority, none of this would be happening. And I want to get into that. I want to get into all of it. And we are going to. But I also want to talk to you about something else. And I will continue to keep coming back to this. Excuse me. We've talked about all kinds of things this week and last week related to the Democrat Party. But you've also noticed, and we've discussed in the past, the change in language. Language. How can you change language? And who's changing the language? Language control is thought control. Language control is thought control. It is used by totalitarian regimes all the time. It is used by autocratic parties all the time. It's being used widely and successfully by the Democrat Party, the media, academia, the teachers' unions. In other words, the Democrat Party and all of its appendages. It is a trait, it is a characteristic of communism, of Marxism, of totalitarianism. We have men and women who have lived through regimes like this, whether it's Castro and Cuba, whether it's Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, the old Soviet Union, China, North Korea, Iran, you name it. And several through the Third Reich. Associate Professor Magda Stronska at McMaster University in Hamilton, Canada. You notice how I give everybody credit? I don't steal their ideas. This, of course, is from the Democrat Party Hates America. Entire chapter on language and thought control. She explains in her essay, Language in Totalitarian Regimes, that totalitarianism promoted persuasion by means of altering perceptions of reality. Totalitarianism promoted persuasion by means of altering people's perception of reality. She also explains that communist regimes use the means of propaganda and mass deception based on a fiction. In other words, language is weaponized to serve the purposes of a political party, a movement, an ideology, and a regime. And in this, the communists are not alone. Stronska notes that, in practice, only a few people can be persuaded that black is white, but many learn to say that they do see things in prescribed colors and to call them by prescribed names. For example, not long ago, Senator Marco Rubio introduced an amendment to a bill, and I quote, that would have clarified for the purposes of maternal and infant-related program resources that only women can be pregnant. That's the bill he introduced. That only women can be pregnant. It was defeated by the Senate Democrats. Or take the word socialist. Stronska explains that while the word socialist became suspect, social from socialist lingers on, became a fixed prefix to words such as social justice, social institutions, social policy, social democracy, or solidarity. And if there were any instances of justice or democracy that were happening in a vacuum, well, that word social would be plopped right in front of it. Now, obviously, this authoritarian practice now widely exists in the United States. as the English language, science, knowledge, experience, and specific words are being redefined, banned, replaced, and so forth to impose on we the people the beliefs, values, and thought processes of the American Marxists and the Democrat Party. For example, academic freedom, debate, and the competition of ideas on college campuses, free speech and exchange of information on internet platforms, entertainment from comedy and plays to television and movies, biological and scientific knowledge about men, women, gender, and sex, public school teacher seminars and training, classroom texts and learning, bureaucratic edicts and regulations, corporate, environmental, social, and governance, ESG, workplace diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, wokeness generally, and more, are all used to serve the ideological, political, and economic purposes of the Democrat Party and its extremist Marxist base. Philosopher and professor Friedrich Hayek, you may have heard of him, of course, put it this way. He wrote, the most effective way of making everybody serve the single system of ends towards the social plan is to make everybody believe in those ends. Although the beliefs must be chosen for the people and imposed upon them, they must become their beliefs, a generally accepted creed which makes the individuals, as far as possible, act spontaneously in the way the planner wanted. Richard Eubling, professor of ethics and free enterprise leadership, The Citadel, explains that it is through our language that we think about ourselves, our relationships to others, and the social order surrounding us. Words do not merely delineate objects, individuals, events, or actions. Words also create mental images, emotions, attitudes, and beliefs that color how people see themselves and the world around them. And he writes about the totalitarianization of words and ideas that can be seen at work in the language of the progressive and radical left, as he puts it, in America today. Is this somewhat interesting to you, Mr. Producer? I'm trying to explain, America, what's going on around you and why these things are happening. All of a sudden, men aren't men, women aren't men, we can't define women. You've got like 1/10 of 1% or less of the United States that is transgender. But you wouldn't believe it. With the executive orders, with the lawsuits, with the edicts, school board educational training and seminars, libraries. The Democrat Party and the Marxists, they seek out these extremist views and they seize on them for the purpose of destroying the existing society. If we in America cannot even accept the fact that a man is a man and a woman is a man, if we can't even accept the fact that parents have a right, a final right, a God-given right to determine how their flesh and blood is to be raised, all of which is in challenge now. If we're going to destroy our economic system and capitalism for so-called climate change that can't even be defined, then we cease to exist. And they do this through thought control and language. Your kids are receiving it now in government schools, colleges, and universities. You're receiving it through television. Mikhail Heller, an author and scholar who was raised in the Soviet Union, explains, language is the most important and the most powerful weapon in the hands of a state that has decided to transform human beings. The creation of a new language serves two aims: to obtain, as George Orwell put it, an instrument with which to express the philosophy and thoughts that are permitted, and secondly, to make all other sorts of thinking impossible. The new language is consequently at once a means of communication and an instrument of oppression. The word conceals reality, creates an illusion, a surrealist impression, but at the same time it preserves a link with reality and puts it into code. The Soviet Union, Heller recounts, the Soviet language became the most important means of preventing people from acquiring more knowledge than the Communist Party and the state wished. Soviet speech lost its freedom. And I might add, the official dictionaries were changed to reflect the Communist Party and the state's meaning of words. We're doing that in our country right now. This same indoctrination tool is occurring in the United States today, and the Democrat Party is at the foreground of this movement. NPR recently reported Dictionary.com has updated thousands of entries and added hundreds of words in its largest release to date, a reflection of the ways in which society and language have evolved, even in just the past few months. The Digital Dictionary announced that it updated more than 15,000 entries and added 650 brand new terms. Many of the revisions deal with language related to identity and topics like race and ethnicity, gender and sexuality, health and wellness. The work of a dictionary, they said, is more than just adding new words. It's an ongoing effort to ensure that how we define words reflects changes in language and life, said John Kelly, senior editor at Dictionary.com. Our revisions are putting people in all their rich humanity first, and we are extremely proud of that. I'm not going to read the whole book. I'm giving you a taste, a little flavor of one chapter to the next. Each chapter basically could be a book unto itself. They're very long chapters, but these are very, very critical subjects. If this is something that intrigues you or draws your attention, that you think is important to explore further, hello? Okay. I want to encourage you to order your copy of The Democrat Party Hates America on Amazon.com, or you can get it at Books A Million or Barnes & Noble sites as well. But I think this is a crucially important book. And I told my Levin TV producers today, I said, you know what? I think this is the most important book I've ever written. Given that the day is today and it's late, that the clock keeps ticking, and that the Democrat Party hides behind these movements. But it is the Democrat Party that together represents these movements.